Here's my rapid report of round 10 of the Tata Steel Tournament. First up, Levon Aronian against Richard Rapport. Well, Rapport repeated his Queen's Indian that he played against Wesley So. Instead of Rook C1, as So had done, and that's the usual move in this position, Levon just retreated the bishop to E1. This has only been played on a few occasions. We might be seeing a few more outings after this game. Levon won a beautiful game here. That's actually my game of the day. Do check out the details. I don't want to spoil it for you, but wonderful attack from Levon. Moving on. Luc van Velde against Anish Giri. A very boring draw. Enough said. Moving on. Hari Krishna against Magnus Carlsen. Now, Carlsen was trying to create complications here. Hari Krishna played a very solid 4 knights, and Carlsen has managed to get his pawn to D2. It's starting to look a little bit messy, and this was a critical moment in the game. Carlsen was no doubt looking at this spectacular move, rook takes pawn. If the rook takes, of course, that's a queen, so the queen has to take. Now that opens up this diagonal. Black has a spectacular move here, rook C3 check. Very tricky. So G3 blocks the check, and now queen. Well, if rook takes, then rook takes queen. White is just completely lost there. So you have to play pawn takes rook. So at this moment, black has 2 queens. But incredibly, white actually stands better here. Now this is a fairly forced move. The queen is under fire. You can't really check here. Well, you can, but it gets, the second rank can be covered very easily by the rook. In the meantime, black is going to white is going to take on f7, and in fact these rooks are stronger than the queens. So Magnus declined to go into that variation correctly, played instead rook c2, but after this exchange of queens, well, the position petered out to a draw, but had some interesting moments that game. Moving on to Adiban against Nepomniachtchi. Now, a Najdorf variation. Adiban has played very adventurously in this tournament, and today was just the same. Bishop e2 was played by Wei Yi against Nepomniachtchi earlier in the tournament. Here, Adiban played bishop c4, even more aggressive, and well, e5 was played by the Russian. I mean, this, to me, as a Najdorf player, this looks suicidal to me, because it opens up the bishop's diagonal. It allows white's knights access to these glorious squares f5 and d5. This is what happened. After this, the knight came to f5, and after g6, Adiban sacrificed a piece here by castling queenside. White has fantastic compensation for the piece. All his pieces in play. The black king stuck in the middle. How Nepomniachtchi survived this, I do not know. He was under pressure for the entire game, but just scraped a draw. It was a great game, actually, worth replaying. Ulyanov against Wei Yi, fascinating game. Round about here, move 24, I thought looks very regular, symmetrical pawn structure. I thought this game was going to burn to a draw very quickly, but Wei Yi completely outplayed Ulyanov. Round about here, suddenly he'd broken through. I mean, this looked absolutely terrifying, but in the end, Ulyanov, by the skin of his teeth, managed to make a draw. Again, a fascinating game, worth replaying. Karyakin against Andreikin. Well, we saw a bit of excellent endgame technique from Karyakin, and, well, a pawn up. Typical endgame rook and pawn advantage, where the rook is behind the pawn, and Karyakin with excellent smooth technique won this game. So moving on, last game, Wesley So against Radoslav Wojtaszek. Well, it was this variation of the Catalan, slightly unusual, playing the Queen C2 forecasting. It's been seen before. Moving on, in this position, Wesley produced a novelty, Bishop D2, and this was enough to confuse the Polish player. Round about here, very complicated game, but Wesley crashed in with Bishop B7, and Black's position collapsed completely. Very smooth game from Wesley So. That means that after 10 rounds, Wesley So, with that victory, increases his lead to 7 out of 10. So just to recap, the other decisive games today, Aronian beat Rapport, Karyakin beat Andreikin, and Wesley So beat Wojtaszek. So Wesley So with 7 out of 10. Then there's a chasing pack 1 point behind with 6 points. Carlsen, Ilyanov, Weyi, Aronian, and Karyakin. Looking at the 3 remaining rounds, I think Wesley So has the easier run in. Tomorrow, not tomorrow, in round 11, there's a rest day tomorrow, in round 11 on Friday, Wesley So has Black against Andreikin, Carlsen has White against Aliban, Weyi has White against Karyakin, Wojtaszek against Aronian. But I think Wesley So has an excellent chance to win the tournament. 3 rounds to go and he's a point clear.